everybody's getting guilty here, and welcome to my review of the Transformers Studio Series Rise of the Beast Rhinox. And I know what you are all thinking right now, but DK, you hated Rise of the Beast. See, that's the wonderful thing about Transformers, is you don't even have to, if you can buy figures from movies that you don't even like. Anyway, this guy is interesting, very interesting. This was actually one of my most excited bots of the year. I was very, very excited for this figure. And I'll be honest, I am a little bit disappointed by this thing, but not for reasons, just for reasons that I didn't expect to be. This figure is very weird, but we'll get into it. And it's not really a miss. It has a lot of issues, but it's not really a miss because it's pretty darn fun. But without further ado, let's get into the review. And I'm just gonna kick this off right now with the absolute biggest problem with this figure whatsoever that I felt as soon as I picked him up out of the box. And that is that he is just boring. He is just so dull and lifeless to look at. And the biggest problem with that is his head sculpt. There is almost no paint on his head sculpt. He has some silver picked out for like the eyebrows, some green for the eyes, and then literally everything else is that just Games Workshop gray. It is so boring. It looks so freaking lifeless and dull. I remember a long time ago, Gwen Collects put out a video on her channel where she was doing an anime figure haul, as she usually does. If you know who Gwen Collects is, then you know. And she was unboxing this one that was this like Evangelion character that was like the white hair kid. I don't know. I never finished Evangelion. But she had this figure of him, and she was like, I hate this figure because it's so dull and boring. And after getting this is that equivalent to me, because this thing is just so unpleasant to look at. It just has no color, nothing whatsoever. And honestly, the main problem is just the head sculpt. If they could have just hit that head sculpt with a little bit more paint, and then not just go completely into the whole rest of this thing right here, this figure would actually not look all that, I don't think this figure would look all that boring, because aside from the head sculpt, you've got some silver on the what are those called? The shoulder pads, some nice bronze right there on there, some nice bronze for that underneath. Like there's some breakup right here. It's just this part. There's just so little color in here that it's just so unbelievably boring to look at. Now, talking about plastic quality, it's pretty solid, although he has really, really weak legs right here. And because his legs are so like short and like so much like unproportioned to his body, I mean, we all thought that when we were looking at those pictures, he's a bit difficult to stand up. Sorry, kitty cat. He's a little bit difficult to stand up, unfortunately. Like maybe if I could show you like right here, you can see he doesn't really have like a huge problem, but his legs are really, really loose, and his feet are also a kind of tiny. So he does kind of wobble a bit, and he's not very difficult to like knock over. And I don't know, actually, while having this guy, it seems like his legs might have gotten a little bit tighter, which is interesting to me. I don't really know why that would be, but when I first got him and I was like trying to stand him up, he was like very, very wobbly, but that seems to have helped a little bit. Maybe it's because I keep my room very cold, so maybe like the coldness like helped his knees like solidify up. I could definitely see that happening. My cat keeps bumping the tripod here, but yeah, he's just very, very boring. And another problem with this guy is the articulation is unfortunately pretty darn weak, because he doesn't even get 90-degree bends at his elbows right there. Now he does have wrist swivel, which is pretty awesome, and then the legs are actually very articulated. You can get a good amount of knee bend right there, not double jointed, which is actually interesting because of how much like articulation is in here in the knee. And you do also have a nice ankle pivot right here and a little bit of down as well, which is definitely very, very nice. But the arms really, really do hurt a lot. Like, it's just hard to get him to look cool because his arms are just always like, you can't do anything with them, you know? That's not even 90-degree bend. Like, 90-degree bends isn't even enough in my opinion, but this guy can't even get 90 degrees. Like, it's just a little bit shy of that. And also the head sculpt, it does have a little bit of movement. It's on a ball joint, so that's nice, but it doesn't really get a lot of up or down. It can get a good amount of side to side, though. And again, it's just boring looking. I'll also say that I also feel like his elbow joint is just at a weird spot. Like, when you bend him, it looks like his forearm is bigger than like his like shoulders, which is really, really weird. Like, look. So there's his forearm and there's his shoulder, and that's where the bend is. So it feels really weird. It's similar to a problem that Earthrise Wheeljack had. But, yeah, those are my major problems. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this design for Rhinox, because I think it is pretty solid. Obviously, it pretty much changes everything about the original Beast Wars design. You know, he doesn't have, like, the jaw on his chest, which I feel is pretty darn iconic, and I don't know, I don't want to be that guy who bitches and moans about redesigns, because I love the Bay movies, and you know what, I am fine with this design for Rhinox. I have no problem with it. But I do kind of don't really understand why, if they're going to be more faithful to the design, unlike the Bayformers, why not at least give him, like, the iconic jaw chest, you know, the open jaw behind him. But I do kind of like some of the things they changed about it. I like that they put the horns up here. I think that's pretty darn cool looking, you know. It's pretty cool. And the butt is very, very clean. You know, you've got no kibble on the back, which I think is pretty good. You have the tail here, but I think it's pretty easy to hide or ignore. And yeah, like there's not really any kibble on him whatsoever. He's a very clean butt, and the plastic quality is pretty solid on him. He doesn't feel as heavy as I expected him to, and like, you look at him and he looks like he's made of rocks, but he's really not as heavy as that. And again, these knees, very, very weak. And as for some comparisons for plastic quality, picking him up with like Minerva here, actually Minerva does not feel that much lighter, which is very, very surprising, because I did get on her about that. Laser Optimus Prime here is like twice as heavy as Rhinox right there, so yeah, but that is an extremely premium feeling figure, so can't be too mad at that one. How about Origin Jazz? Origin Jazz does feel very much heavier than him, so yeah, plastic quality could have been a little bit better, but I also don't think it's too bad and not really worth complaining about. There is some weird sections right here, like these pieces are a little bit cheap feeling, and the same with these pieces right here, although it's not bad, it's not all that bad. The major problem with the robot mode is just the blandness of this section right here. It's just so boring, man. It honestly gives me vibes of like those the Authentics figures, where it just has no paint whatsoever. Like, all it needed was some more paint on the head sculpt, and this would not have looked so damn boring, honestly. Like, the torso and all that is fine, and all this looks good, but the head is just so dull. It's so lifeless. Now, accessory-wise, you do get one, and it's a pretty cool accessory, although there's something weird about it that I don't really like. This is the accessory you get, and it folds out like this. It has a little notch right there that it plugs into, so you can fold it to the back right there, and that's so that you can plug it on his back for some kick-ass weapon storage, which you guys know I very much appreciate. But what I don't appreciate about this thing is that when you put this thing in his hand, the stopping point for it, the actual handle, is right here. So when you put it in his hand, he can't hold it in any section securely, except that one. So now he holds it like one of those like meat tenderizers for when you trying to like tenderize meat. You know what a meat tenderizer does. And I guess maybe that's what it's trying to be, because it does look like a meat tenderizer, but like, you have no options. It would have been nice if they could have like maybe put like a peg in the middle that you separated and put another handle down here, so you could at least have the option to put it right there, but you don't. You have to have him hold it like this, which I think is not the best, honestly. Another thing I have to complain about with this guy is that, on the note of plastic quality, I did forget to mention that a lot of his pieces really like to pop off. Specifically these shoulder pieces right here, these just come off every time, and it's really obnoxious because they come off constantly when you're trying to transform him. I will do my best to try and show you ways to not have them pop off while you're transforming him, because obviously if they pop off, that makes him a parts former. And y'all know more, yeah, y'all know me, parts forming's a big old thumbs down. But yeah, those like to pop off. And also, if you do the arms wrong, these also pop off very, very easily as well, because they're not pinned. This isn't the biggest deal though. This one's pretty easy to just not rip them off of the joints, but these just come off like it's their freaking job, dude. Like, these are just constantly wanting to pop off. And I feel like there was one other thing that was also wanting to pop off, but I can't remember right now, so I guess not. But yeah, that's the robot mode. The biggest problem is just the lack of paint, dude. I feel like Emgo, just the freaking paint is just so... I've never really cared about paint, honestly, even on Studio Series figures. Like, when I look at something like, here's a good example, when I look at something like Brawl here, okay, so hear me out here. So even though Brawl actually has a pretty similar amount of paint on his head to Rhinox. Like, Brawl has got this green, goes into his head, he's got all that silver, and he's got some red peeking through back there. But why does he just look so much cooler and so much more interesting than this Rhinox? Look at this. This looks like a Happy Meal toy, and this looks like a modern Generations figure. Do we disagree? I really, really, really believe this, and I'd really like to hear what other people have to say, because it's just so boring to look at, man. Again, I've never really cared that much for paint. I've usually been like, you don't really need paint. But in this case, this gray is just, it's too much. For comparison, first off, here he is with the rest of my Studio Series Rise of the Beast collection. We've got the Bumblebee, and we've got the Scourge right here. So yeah, even though I didn't like this movie, these figures, you know, I'm definitely enjoying these Studio Series Rise of the Beast figures. Rhinox is definitely the weakest. Bumblebee is definitely the strongest so far, with Scourge right plunked in the middle, but there's plenty of others coming out this year that I'm interested in, so we'll see how it continues to grow. But these scale great as far as I can tell. Here he is with his wave mate, the Gamer Edition Megatron, right there. And I will say, if you see these two on the shelf right next to each other, I would say go with Gamer Megatron. Personally, he just feels so much more satisfying and nice to hold. Like, he's so much heavier than this Kingdom Rhinox. He's got so much more paint. A lot of fun to pose. Really great posability. I love the way his fusion cannon goes. I'll be reviewing Gamer Edition Megatron very soon, so you can stay tuned for that review if you'd like. But personally, between these two, I would say go with Gamer Edition Megatron. His transformation is more fun, though. Anyway, here he is with Kingdom Rhinox. You can see how he looks with Hasbro's attempt at a Beast Wars accurate Rhinox. You know, the keyword there being attempt. And last but not least, I thought this would be a good one as well. Here he is with the Kingdom Optimus Primal, just until, you know, we get the Studio Series Optimus Primal. So, there you go. And here he is with Great Rimuru-sama. And I'm not gonna lie, transformation on this thing is pretty freaking great. Like, this is a really fun transformation, and literally the best thing about this figure easily. So, first off, you want to rotate his wrists, and then you want to pop his wrists down, which is gonna reveal this thing, rotate this around, and fold that back up. Same thing on this side right here. That's not supposed to come on tab, so, oops. And then come over here, flip that down, remember, rotate that around, flip that in, bring that down, and there you go, and then you're gonna rotate the arms this way, just like that. Now, you're gonna come down here, these little panels right here are gonna open, which I think is pretty darn fun and satisfying to do, and then you're gonna bring this torso panel down right here, bring these pieces down, and then we're going to come to the back here, we're gonna take our fingernail and just kind of grab this and just pop this whole section open right there, which I think is really cool. Pop the rhino head out, and then fold the little tusks or the little rhino horns in there, just like that. Now, I'm going to take his arm right here, rotate them in, and get them in there, so you can just get that in to that little gap right there. Now, these things might pop off, but you just have to put it back on, because they don't stay on too well, but as long as you give it the little clearance it needs, there you go, you get them in there without them popping off, bring those back down, and then fold this little panel down, and there's little torso pegs right there. Also, you have to make sure you get these pegged in to right there as well, which I think is pretty darn cool, and then fold that piece up and tab that in right there. Now come to the head here, you're going to bring this little panel down right here, and then you're going to pop the rhino head open and fold that piece out, which you would think would be really satisfying, but honestly it's not very satisfying, and then fold that piece down and lock that back in place, and then you have two tabs on either side that are just going to lock the rhino head in place just like that, and that covers up the rhino robot head. And then you're going to come back here, bring his legs down just like that, untab this little piece right here, and you have to make sure you bring this hinge down on that hinge, and then bring this down, that will fill in the back of the rhino, and then you have two slots that will go into two tabs right there. They usually do it on their own, just like it did this time. So there you go, that is the transformation. It is pretty darn satisfying to do, but I'll take it away, future me, or past me in my case. Okay, before we talk about this alt mode, that transformation is awesome. The whole reason I started wanting this figure so bad after the reveal was just when the transformation got revealed. The transformation just looked so damn fun from the reviews, and when you get it in hand, yes, it's an absolute blast. This transformation kind of reminds me of old school, like, Unicron Shoji figures. Like, these massive chunks of plastic move out of the way and use very unique things, like the way these pieces just lock in right there, and they even, like, tab in and everything. That piece comes up, you have this massive chunk of plastic that moves from the back and all that. Very, very satisfying. There's no fiddliness. It's just very, very cool. This is actually probably one of my favorite transformations I've experienced all year. Unfortunately, again, the Rhino mode suffers from the exact same problem as the robot mode. It's just so dull. It's just so boring looking. It's just a big hunk of gray plastic, and even less of the, like, bronze is even visible here. Like, you have this and you have that, and that's like it. Everything else is just that dull freaking gray, and then there's a little bit of dark gray up here at the top. And it's just boring. It's just really boring. I do kind of like the texturing that they put on the back here. That was very, very nice, and all of it over here as well. Like, it does, the texturing helps, but the gray is just so goddamn boring, dude. It just doesn't look right. And there's also some things about this Rhino mode that feel kind of cheap, honestly. Like, the mouth right here, this just feels so cheap. Like a really, like, phoned in little part of him. And then this piece right here, you can see there's this huge gap right here. You can see through it right there. See it right there? It doesn't lock in. I gotta let my cat out real quick, guys. Yeah, that gap just doesn't want to go away. And even this, because of that gap, the rhino horn is not really secure. It likes to bend up and down. Now, honestly, aside from the paint, I love this Rhino mode. I love how unique this looks. It kind of looks armored, which is really, really cool in my opinion. And I dig it. I dig the way this looks. I like how they had this, like, torso piece come down and become this, like, big old belly of the Rhino. I think that's really cool. Unfortunately, it does have a big old gap in there, but I don't know. I think it's pretty unnoticeable when you, like, look at it, right? Like, you kind of have to, like, get under there and really look at it for it to be a problem. So I don't think it's a huge deal. The major problem is just the exact same problem in robot mode. So boring, so dull, and so cheap looking. Doesn't feel cheap, but it looks cheap in my opinion. And again, this is really like one of the only times I can think of where paint has significantly hurt a modern Transformer for me. Like, usually I feel like they put enough paint on it. This is like the first time where I'm just like, this needed so much more paint, dude. And I really feel like, I think, if I remember correctly, when they first revealed this thing, it did have more paint. It looked much nicer. But then it came out, and now it looks like this. It's really, really boring. I don't know. You guys tell me in the comments. You do have weapon storage. Again, you can just pop the thing down into this position right here, and then you can plug it on top. It's not great looking, but at least it folds down a little bit, right? And it's not just like stuck on there. I mean, it kind of looks like a missile rack, maybe? You know? You can pass that off as like a little missile rack on top, so that's not the worst thing ever. I've tried to come up with some other things. You can like stick it in right here if you want to, and you can also shove it into this little hole right here, but it doesn't go in enough for it to actually like store, unfortunately. So unfortunately, your real only option is to plug it just on top right there, but it could look worse. And the articulation on the Rhino mode is actually not horrible. You do have a good amount of movement back here, and of course, you know, the feet can move up and ankle pivot well, and then you have some movement up here in the arms, and you can like bring them out a little bit if you want to. And there's even a ball joint at the at that right there, and you even have a little bit of up and down right here at the Rhino mode, which they actually put like this whole extra piece in there right there, so to allow you to do that, which is pretty cool. And again, you do have that little mouth right there, but it's really cheap and phoned in feeling. So yeah, I don't know, man. The Rhino mode is really close to being a home run. It's just, unfortunately, just falls flat in pretty much the exact same aspects of the robot mode, and that's what's really hurting this figure. So with that being said, here's some comparisons, and we'll jump into the final thoughts. And here he is once again with the Kingdom Rhinox. You can see how he looks together. Got a bit of a Rhino army going on right here, which is pretty cool. You know, I kind of like this dichotomy. You know, it's very cool to have like both versions of the characters. And then here is a Mixmaster, just for another comparison, just because I don't know what else to compare this guy with, and I'm not just gonna transform all my Rise of the Beast guys just to do a little comparison that, you know, probably nobody's even watching anyway. People probably just get through this anyway. So there you go. So final thoughts on Studio Series Rhinox. Well, unfortunately, once again, Hasbro was so close, but just fell flat in a couple spots. This is really unfortunate in my opinion. There's just a lot wrong with this guy. He's just very dull, very boring. Some of the plastic feels really cheap. Some of it likes to pop off a lot. The way he holds his weapon is really, really weird, and he just doesn't feel worth the price, unfortunately. Like, he just has such like a Happy Meal toy feeling to him, where he just has no paint whatsoever, and he's so dull, and I really don't appreciate how loose these joints are. I haven't tried putting Kiki's in there yet, so maybe I should do that, but he just, like, when you put this guy next to a modern Transformer, he does not look like he's from the same era, like, whatsoever. Like, again, bringing back this absolutely immaculate Studio Series Brawl figure. Just look how much, like, more modern and cooler this figure looks compared to this. And look how, he essentially has the same exact amount of paint. And yet somehow he just looks infinitely cooler, in my opinion. Now, I will say that I've never been a huge fan of Rhinox as a character. Like, in all honesty, I'd actually say he's probably one of the weakest characters in all of the Beast Wars, like, thing. Because, like, I don't know, he just never really does all that much, never really contributes anything. And there's an episode of the show that is actually, like, one of the worst episodes of a TV show I've ever seen that is completely centered around him having a cold. And the way it ends is the stupidest, cringiest thing you've ever seen in your life. It is an awful fucking episode. It is so bad. And it's like, every time I see anything about that episode, I'm like, how can people think this show is better than Prime, dude? Because it's literally an awful, awful episode. And yeah, but you know, he's okay. He didn't really do much in Rise of the Beast. So, you know, even if you, I don't know, even if you like or dislike Rise of the Beast, I don't think that matters because he was in the movie for very little time. And honestly, this is one you're gonna have to make your own opinion on. If you think he looks worth it, then go ahead. But I'm telling you right now, you're almost definitely gonna get him in hand and be like, he's so boring. He's so dull. He just does not look cool at all because he just has no paint on him whatsoever. And yeah, and again, you know, the articulation's pretty limited. The accessory could have been handled a lot better. Transformation's awesome. Cannot say that enough. Transformation's really, really fun. And alt mode, I feel, is pretty darn good as well. I feel like the alt mode does get a pass. But the robot mode brings this guy down quite a bit for me. And unfortunately, he is not the home run that I was expecting him to be. And I was really, really thinking this guy was going to easily break my top 10 of the year. But now I'm pretty sure he's not even an honorable mention. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to hit Studio Series Rise of the Beast Rhinox with a B+. We'll go with a B. We'll go with a B+, actually. A B+. Go watch the Shrapnel review if you're confused right now. He's not great. He's not horrible. He's far from horrible. He's absolutely far from horrible. There's a lot to love about this guy. Transformation especially, very, very fun. But he's just very, very boring. And I mean, and Voyagers these days, we're up to like, what, $40 right now for Voyagers? $40 for this? I don't know. I don't feel like it's worth it, but that's up to you if you want to get him. So thank you all so much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, maybe give me a like and subscribe for some more Transformer reviews in the future. Let me know your thoughts on the Studio Series Rhinox, and please tell me what you think of what I said about the paint in this. Do you feel like I'm out of line? Because I really do. I strongly believe that this guy just doesn't have enough paint on him. Like, again, I really think if they just hit the head with a little bit more paint, maybe some of that dark gray down here, or just something to make the head stand out a little bit more. Maybe even throw in like a little bit of orange in there, you know, as some kind of like mechanical thing going on in the back. Because wasn't there a scene in the movie where he was in Rhino mode and he like roared and you could see like this big orange thing in his mouth right there? Wouldn't it be cool if they put like some orange in there, just have it like pop out a little bit more at you? Like, give me a sec, hang on. Here, look at Gamer Edition Megatron. Review coming soon, by the way. Look at Gamer Edition Megatron's head. He's got these very subtle little purple things underneath his eyes right there. And it really gives the head a little bit more life, makes it pop out a little bit more. This guy, again, all he's got is a little bit of silver there, and then all of the rest of it is just that Games Workshop gray. And honestly, I don't have a huge problem with them using Games Workshop gray. And I don't think it looks too bad. Like, Megatron uses quite a bit of it, and I think this figure's awesome. Spoiler. But this is just, there's just so little paint up here that it just goes away. It's gone. The head sculpt just doesn't pop out whatsoever. And the head sculpt should be one of the things that just draws your eye straight to it, especially in a modern Transformer, because they kill it so much with the modern head sculpt. I mean, again, look at this freaking brawl. Look at that amazing head sculpt, man. I don't know. I think this guy may have like one of the weakest head sculpts in all of Transformers that I've like ever seen, honestly. So thank you all so much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. And this is DK Yellowstein, signing out.